And even with California, being hit with COVID, it feels like you're still doing well. I mean, numbers are going really well for that unit. Is it? Do you know if it's what the reason is?
I think because I was so amazing.
A rising tide raises all ships.
We're trying to find, activate, and retain more customers.
You work from 9 to 5 to make a living.
And from 8 to 2 to make a life.
When we look at the heart of the network,
the data shows us key performance indicators about our business.
And this is the InXpress Show.
Hello, InXpress Network business owners, franchisors, entrepreneurs, bootstrappers, listeners everywhere, and everyone between all of that. We're very excited to bring you episode number 7 of the InXpress podcast, and our host today, Blake Waller, is talking with our guest, Howard Fischer.
Hey, I'm really excited for this episode, man. You spent 10 years with InXpress, and now it's in the rear view mirror for you. You have sold the business last year, and I guess just the first question. Tell me how that feels.
It feels a lot different than I thought it would feel. I didn't really anticipate this COVID thing happening. So that sort of surprised me, but it seemed like maybe it was a good time to get out for reasons other than upcoming pandemic. It was like you mentioned, it's 10 years. That's the second longest job I've ever had, and I've been working for just about 50 of them. Seems like I've always had a job, but you say rearview mirror, and I was thinking about that. Is like it really does feel like a rearview mirror kind of thing. And to work the analogy a little harder, it's like when you sign up to do InXpress, it feels like it's coming right at you like a freight train or something. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what it is, and you don't know how hard it's going to hit you, but you know it's coming. And then it gets in, it's your passenger, and it really felt like InXpress was a passenger in the car. I was driving, but InXpress was there, and just sort of like not really criticizing me, but sort of helping me navigate, advising me, and now that it's out of the car, it does feel like, in a sense, saying goodbye to somebody that's been around for a little while, and you went to different places with. So I kind of like it. I like not working. I'm pretty good at it. But it's nice to have it behind me.
I like that analogy. It's not one that I hear very often. I mean, usually more often it's drinking out of a fire hose, and this is a lot to handle coming at us, with training and all the services that people are trying to learn with how to sell, and do I hire customer service? How do I run the business? It's cool to hear that you were in the driver's seat. Why do you think you felt that way?
I think one of the things that really worked for me with InXpress is that even though I felt, encouraged, prompted, goosed to hire salespeople, to expand the business, maybe buy another franchise, hire lots of customer service people, take part in all these different kinds of things. I didn't really gravitate toward that. I felt like I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. And they were cool with that. I kind of, I never felt like, they were pressuring me to run the business any different than I did. And I felt like that was pretty liberating. I wouldn't say that I dismissed anything that they were saying was probably good business practice, but I certainly felt the freedom to run the business the way I wanted to. And so it never got to be, I never felt like, if they would just, back off on this, it would be a better business. It's like, no, if you go out there and, do the stuff that, they're constantly preaching, which is make contacts, sign up customers and activate them, you'll be successful. But beyond that, they were pretty casual about it, and that worked for me.
Right. So if your online bio is accurate, you spent 14 years as an advertising copy director with Macy's, and then you had a 10-year tenure at InXpress. How did you make that transition? How'd you find it? Tell me about, finding it, signing, and how that transition went.
Well, I guess I was a desperado. Macy's laid me off with, thousands of other people, and the second worst economic era of my lifetime. And so I had to find something. And I was 53 at the time. And oddly enough, my brother got laid off at the same time, and he's a little bit older than me. And he was going, "Nobody gonna hire you. You're 53 years old." I said, I'll show you. I'll get a job."
Yep.
He was right. No one was not even talking to me. And I knew that advertising was going to be contracting in that economic environment. So I thought, geez, I should probably look into working for myself. So I found a broker who suggested a bunch of different things, and the one that I thought was the most interesting was InXpress. I thought, now that's something that even if I weren't successful, it would at least be interesting. Global trade felt like, well, that's probably going to expand. I don't think that's going to contract.
Right.
I think that's probably got an upside. But it just felt like, yeah, world trade is like, that's an interesting business. So that made it much more attractive. And then when I finally had conversations with Dustin and Ken and a couple other franchisees, this was kind of in the InXpress infancy, really, but it just felt like it was doable. So I had to find a job. This opportunity came along, and I felt like, if InXpress does what they do and DHL does what they do, then the only X factor in this is me. And I think I could trust me enough to go out and do the work, even though I'd never really done any sales and I knew nothing about transportation. I felt like, yeah, I could learn it. I could do it. So that's how it came about.
I like it. So those early days, I mean, if it's 10 years, I think you exited in 2019, so 10 years prior would be 2009. Were things growing again after 2008 yet? I know that DHL had just reorganized. What were those first years like? I mean, you're only selling international, you had fewer franchisees, but probably a better ratio corporate to franchisee. What were those first few months and years like?
It was pretty dismal. First year anyway. I remember, I worked it pretty hard, and I knew I was not being as successful as some of the other folks who were starting out. And then I got my first 1099 from InXpress after a year, and I looked at it and was going, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
I'm never going to make it. But it just felt like, and I guess this is kind of the magic of, running your own business is that, you can't fire yourself, right? You can't, reprimand yourself. You just kind of have to keep at it. So I did. But the neat thing was that even though I wasn't making much money, it felt like the possibilities were there. People wanted to talk about their, transportation issues, and it felt like there was kind of like a glow on the horizon. Maybe it was a little far for me, but it just seemed at the time that there was potential, that it wasn't, there was no market there. It wasn't like that. It was more like I just haven't kind of figured out how to do this. And then, through a lot of trial and error, I did figure it out. I was having more success. People were saying, okay, well, let's give this a try. And that, created a lot of momentum. And, over 10 years, I guess the momentum never really stopped.
Yep. And you've been awarded for, highest retention of business, best quality of customers, and fastest growth. I mean, we shared a Top Gun trip for fastest growth. What did you learn? What did you adjust? You said that you had to, those first couple years, you had to change things. What advice would you give yourself going back if you could start over again?
one thing that I was really slow to take advantage of was e-commerce. And part of that is just because I'm, technologically not very sophisticated. And the other part was that we really didn't have an e-commerce program in InXpress. We had no platforms that we could integrate with. But once we had that, I was still pretty slow. And it felt like, man, e-commerce, that is probably going to be where the growth in this industry is going to be. And I think it's true, because e-commerce to me is like solid. These people don't want to mess with it. They just, if you're in there, they're going to keep you. And then, so I was able to take on more e-commerce customers and keep them. And yeah, you mentioned that I did get an award for, best retention a couple times. And that's because I'm a lousy salesperson. I've got to keep them. I'm not good at going out and getting new ones, so I've got to keep the ones that I've got. And it was almost like opera. If somebody left me, it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Just don't go.
Yeah.
And
well, somehow you got them though, so you must have found some sales skills in there somewhere.
Well, even the blind squirrel finds it.
Right.
I mean, I learned where to look, and I sort of found a formula that worked for me, which didn't really involve a lot of sales. It was more just opportunity and being persistent. But yeah, I would still say I'm a pretty lousy salesperson, but I'm a really good customer service person. And fortunately, that seemed to work.
That's great. Well, it's just as valuable. Did you do all the customer service yourself the whole time, or did you have somebody else help you out?
For the first 6 or 8 months, I did it, and I did it mostly because I just wanted to learn. I wanted to learn what people were dealing with, and I didn't know anything about it. So I had to, figure out where people were having their pain points. What was causing them problems, and with the system, and how to resolve carrier issues, things like that. So I did that for the first 6-8 months, and then I shared Nancy Wright, who's customer service for a lot of franchisees. I shared her for the remaining 9.5 years, and that was a great move because I still did customer service, but she did a lot of stuff that was, maybe more tedious or repetitive. Didn't require me to jump in there and do stuff and try and learn stuff. So yeah, that was a pretty good combination for me.
Yeah. So she was, it was her the whole time from 8 months on.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, she's amazing. Have to spend a second talking about her. I just started working with her. It would have been, we were more in touch in November, and then when I got the 162 franchise, she had worked with Kent and Kathy and Chris Lopez a lot. So I kind of was morphed into that and saw what kind of service that she provides, and it's incredible. And the shared aspect of her time is perfect for growing franchises, right?
Yep.
So I had a couple gals that did the same thing and kind of scaled our time with theirs, with how much the business grew. And it's how I would recommend. I mean, you tell me if you disagree, but it's how I would recommend all franchises that are growing. You don't need somebody that's full time, but it's somebody that is a professional and available all the time.
Oh, I totally agree. I feel like one thing that really benefited me was the time that I spent doing customer service, because then I knew what folks were dealing with, and then if somebody on the sales side needed to have a question answered, I knew the answer, and then I could help transition them to Nancy so they could continue to get answers. But it was a good kind of a 1-2 punch, and it also freed me up to do more sales and to be, I guess, a bit more flexible with my own schedule.
Mm-hmm. Well, good for you, man. You built a really good business with yourself and Nancy only. Did you ever try a salesperson?
I did.
Okay.
It was a disaster.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, I think I may have mentioned that I'm a lousy salesperson. So what you don't want to have is a lousy salesperson training a new salesperson. And I probably should have thought about that before I tried it, but I thought this guy would be so good at sales that I wouldn't need to train him.
Yep.
He needed to be trained.
Yep.
And so it lasted about 3 months, and I don't think he signed up one person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, that was not my best moment in InXpress, but fortunately, I didn't have to really fire him. He was about ready to go anyway. So.
Yeah. It's so difficult, man. It's finding the right person it's kind of like a mini entrepreneur is someone that you need, because it's not a box that they get that's teaching them, that they open up and says do this all step by step. You have to be intuitive. You have to know how to sell and know how to figure things out, maybe have a little bit of a freight background or sales background at least, to get over some of that reservation about door knocking or cold calling or having those conversations, right?
Oh, too true. And again, because I'm not very polished at sales, it was just not. I really had to kind of rework who I was to be a good sales boss. And I didn't. So, but that experience did teach me that if I wasn't going to have somebody doing sales, I was going to have to get a lot better at it or a lot more committed at it. And I think I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think I would have. I think I mentioned, my lack of familiarity with e-commerce. I think I would have taken like classes, or invaded somebody's office while they're doing their e-commerce setup or whatever, so I could learn. It just felt like I was just not getting it as quickly as I should. And there's people in the InXpress world now who are doing great because they are familiar with e-commerce. But I was slow to get in on it, and I think if I had been a little bit faster, I might have matured the business more quickly.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that. It feels like just now, I mean, you can see if you look back how InXpress changed because of the size. It was, at first, you had to walk in as a salesperson with the customer service and with the service that you're selling. We weren't the size yet to be able to offer the price. And then when we sold enough of those people and we got enough of a base, then we could start to offer a price. And you'd walk in and ideally say, hey, I think we can save you, 10 or 15% on your international parcel spend. And then when the e-commerce kind of wave came, then we could all of a sudden walk in with technology. And that's what, the BDC and the technology arm is talking about is, would it be possible to walk in with the best technology in the marketplace, and then everything else falls into place? The price is also great, the service is also great, and we're not there, but that's where we want to go, is to have the best technology, then that we can start those conversations that way.
Yeah, and InXpress, for all the associations with DHL and through trucking and all the carrier partnerships, it's a technology company first and foremost. That's really what we're selling. We don't really have a thing. We don't have a plane or a truck or a car for that matter. We really are selling a technology. So once I'd be probably the last person to say it, but once you learn the technology, you'll do fine. I might have been the last person to do fine, but I think there's you can get comfortable with it and be able to sell it. You will do well.
Yep. So a question I have on here, Howard, is compensating for working on an island. We heard that a lot when we're involved with InXpress. Is our franchises are in different cities, and quite often you're lucky to have one other InXpress franchise around you or salesperson around you, and then we reconvene twice a year at our conferences and conventions. How did you compensate for working on that island? Because a lot of people thrive in a community or office feel.
Well, people pay a lot of money to go vacation on an island, so working on
not that bad. Yeah.
entirely new talking about. I've worked in an office environment almost all my life, and the idea of working by myself, for myself, was a little bit different. But I'm pretty much of an introvert anyway, so it wasn't an issue for me. I've been a boss for probably 15 or 20 years prior to doing InXpress, and I got to tell you, when I didn't have to be a boss anymore, I was elated.
Really?
Did you talk to somebody who worked for me and they have a different idea?
No, I'll tell you that off the air.
Just not having to be responsible for the experiences of people who worked for me was a great relief. I didn't have really any problems being a boss, but once I shed that burden, it felt very, very liberating. I didn't really miss it, and I was just so committed to this idea that I've got this franchise, and there's nobody else who's going to build it but me. And so I've got to get out and do this, and I'm going to need the money that this franchise is going to be able to spin off to me. So I've got to get after it. So it was not, there was no mournfulness about it. I didn't feel like I was having any trouble getting out of the blocks because I didn't have a team with me. Probably felt maybe just a bit more desperate because there was nobody else who was going to do this other than me.
Right. So it's almost like it was refreshing, change up, being by yourself, not necessarily being locked to an office and being able to do things your way, because you mentioned that, the corporate office in InXpress wasn't forcing you how to run the business.
Exactly. I felt like InXpress wanted, they wanted first and foremost people to grow. And, I wasn't out of the blocks. I wasn't doing anything at all, but it felt like, okay, I'm doing better this month than I was last month, and as long as the curve is starting to go up, they'll be fine, and that was true. But I could still do the business my way, and that felt really very comforting to me.
Yeah. Yep. Was there other times where you had a lack of motivation or loss of vision, the kind of, what am I doing? What did I get myself into? And maybe people you had to reach out to, or how'd you handle that?
It's so interesting. I think maybe at the 6-month mark, I'd gone out on a sales call, and I was coming back, and I was just like, I knew this customer wasn't going to sign up, and it's like, God, I'm the wrong guy doing the wrong job at the wrong time for the wrong business, and everything was coming up wrong, and it's like I'm going to have to go and find another job. I'm going to have to do something else because this isn't going to work. And then I get back home to my office. And then somebody calls and says, "Hey, you were in here last week talking about this thing with DHL. Can you come back next week?" And
wow.
It's like, yeah, wrong, bing.
Yep.
And it was just, I don't know if it's divine intervention or whatever, but it just feels like there was always enough of enough potential to keep me going. The other thing is that I felt like, my kids had seen me work all my life and basically in office settings. And so here's dad, laid off at 53. And I'm thinking, they're probably late teens, early 20s at this point. And I'm thinking they're looking at me going, "Oh, I'll bet he's a one-trick pony. I'll bet he can't do anything else. They weren't really saying that. They probably weren't even thinking it. But I was thinking that I need to show that you can do anything. You can do anything. And just because what you were doing is no longer on the table doesn't mean you can't do something else. So it felt like that was a great motivation to me, just to show that, yeah, we have incredible opportunity. I was telling my wife, she was asking about, getting involved in sales, and I was like, well, it's not like, I guess I could do it. It's not like I have a horn coming out of my head and people would just recoil when they saw me.
Yep.
So, I feel like, I think there's enough tools in the tool belt where I can do something that's a little bit different from what I had been doing.
Yep. What you said earlier it's amazing how true it is and how often it happens with the wrong ding, right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, there are so many. I'm almost to the point, I'm only 6 years in, and I'm almost to the point where it's like if I have a bad day, I start to get excited because I know that something is going to happen. And I don't know if that's InXpress or if that's just business in general or owning the business or what, but it's crazy how many times it's like you lose a great customer and then the very next day either somebody does high volume or you get somebody else or you have a great conversation or you get a few people to sign up. But it is so often that it happens. And I even see it with sales reps now. They're banging their head against the wall and they're saying nobody answers and this and COVID and all the excuses that we've heard and software changes and all that, and then their next month is the best. It's crazy. It happens every time, it feels like.
Do you feel like that's a result of having a pretty full funnel, having lots and lots of contacts?
Definitely. There's probably a lot of explanations, right? I mean, I'm sure it's got to bounce back at some time is the dumbest explanation. Yeah. But yes, I mean, you have to have a full funnel because eventually, and that's what I always preach to these guys in sales is that, it is a numbers game. As old as that phrase is, it's true. As many people as you have in the top of the funnel, you're going to get more no's than yeses. You will, no matter what. And you can have the same conversation with two people in sales. One person will spit in your face and one person will give you a hug. It's just and say you're exactly what I've been, exactly what we need, exactly what I've been looking for, and the other person's like, why would I ever do that? Stop wasting my time, And that was one of the biggest eye openers for me is how people would respond totally different to the same exact conversation. And it comes down to timing, and it comes down to what's going on with them and how their business is going. Are they willing to talk? How was their day? Maybe they just had the big ding themselves, so they're happy to talk to you too. But it's obviously, to your point, the more people that you do have in the funnel, the more opportunities of those dings to happen. And you're always going to have more wrongs. You're going to have more wrongs. You have the best product in the world. There's too many people out there to have more correct buys than wrongs. But I don't know, just weird things that you pick up in sales, right?
Well, the hardest part for me initially was, and this is before I bought the franchise, when I heard that the formula was 30 contacts. I don't know if it's the same, but 30 contacts a day. 5 appointments and then two signups, 2 customers signing up a week, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's 148 no's. That's 148 failures for your 2 successes. And it's like, that is a terrible ratio.
I know.
Me, because I feel like I'm sensitive enough. It's like, I don't want to get 448 rejections. I don't want that.
Right.
So one thing I did was I became much more targeted in my approach. So it's like, I don't want to just randomly, dial or contact a customer to see if they do international shipping. So I do some online research to see if they had an office in Hong Kong or if they had, they source their stuff from Germany. And then, then I would contact and say, hey, I understand that you have an office in Hong Kong, and periodically you may need to send something there or get something back from there. We represent DHL, and we might be able to save you some money on your shipping costs. And it's like, okay, well, now they're not saying we don't do any international, because I know they do.
Yep.
And I think it also helped me feel more confident that that they might say, okay, this guy's done at least a little research, and would be more willing to talk to me. So it had kind of a symbiotic effect where they felt more comfortable talking to me, and I felt more confident talking to them.
Yep. It's so true and so accurate. I like how you say that you looked for locations in other countries. Most people that are selling this service are just asking about international shipping, period. But if they know that, they have another location, obviously they're probably doing some sort of goods or documents or excess or shortages or, whatever.
Yeah.
And dealing with that rejection, there was a Joe Rogan podcast where he had Kevin Hart on just recently, and he was talking about how it helps so much to view it as a game. And if you see it as a game, and part of the game is that people are gonna yell at you or people are gonna say no, and you have to wear it on the chin and say, almost laugh at it, right? Like it's a rule of the game that people are gonna do that. Now, to win the game, you still have to get them to do what you want them to do. Or rather, even a better way to look at it, you still have to find a way where they listen to you, where you can help them with their shipping, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting you say it as a game, because I think as I matured in the business, I became a bit more snarky. So if I find somebody who, you could look at their FedEx rates online for e-commerce, and you can say, I can blow this out of the water. This is crazy. They're paying this much money.
Yep.
So if I contact them and say, hey, you're paying this, or your customers are paying this, and they could be ordering more product from you if they only paid this much for shipping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you think, this is impossible. How could they not want to do this?
So simple. So simple. You're totally right. You look at it like that, and it's just so black and white.
But then if they would say, no, we're not that interested, I would still look at it as a game. It's like, okay, well, I understand that you really want to support the executive team at UPS, who has recruited you and are happy to have the extra money that you're sending them. That is a wonderful position for you to be in. If you ever change your mind, I'm here for you.
That's great.
Not take it as, Howard, you're an idiot, but it's like, for some reason, we're just not making that connection.
Yeah.
And then, from time to time, having been in the business 10 years, somebody else that same person would call you and say, hey, remember what we were talking about 6 months ago? Let's look at this again.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, you may look at it as a game, but it's still, you're still doing business. And if you treat people respectfully, and maybe even with a little bit of fun in it, they might be a customer of yours.
Yep. And when you say almost jokes like that, that's what it takes to snap them out of their recording that they play in their head.
Yeah.
The recording that they play in their head is, no thanks, we're not interested, whatever. And then your response of, hey, I understand you like to overpay for this. It's like, wait, what?
You're
right.
I'm
you're
telling
like
other customers that you're interested in overpaying, so they can come and do business with you.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about franchising, man. You had 10 years with InXpress. It's an interesting model. It's not, when I came on, I thought franchises were all foods, and it was food chains, but it's the relationship between franchisor and franchisee, corporate office. They support us, we support them. It's an interdependent relationship. Talk about the positives and negatives in your experience.
Well, I wasn't looking to buy a franchise initially. I was looking to buy a business. And then ran into this guy who said, oh, you should talk to this fella, Brian Johnson, who's a franchise broker. And, Brian and I talked a little bit about, ambitions and comfort levels and long-term goals, etc. And he said, the learning curve on franchising is a lot better than it is on independent businesses, and that I didn't really have the deep pockets to fund a lot of learning. So I thought, well, maybe franchising would shorten that for me. And I wasn't really sold on the idea, but once I started having conversations, not only with Dustin and Ken, but with other franchisees, it just began to make a lot more sense to me. That the network is already set up, the platform is already there. All you have to do is plug in your personality, your characteristics, and to make it go. And it's like, okay, that's good. I think I can get behind that. Oddly enough, this fellow who was the broker, Brian Johnson, he called me about 6 months after I had started my franchise, and he says, "You know what? I'm going to buy an InXpress franchise."
You know what? I was going to ask that because I'm like, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he bought a franchise, and so I was I was asking Dustin and say, "Hey, can I get that finder's fee? Because this I sort of found him for you, didn't I?"
Yeah, as he was finding you. That's funny. Yeah,
but I did not get the finder's fee, but it did sort of endorse that sense of, hey, I made the right decision because the guy who sold me the franchise or encouraged me to buy it is now buying one. So that made it seem like it was legit.
Right. Exactly. And it's funny how much that happened. Who was it just recently that was in the same exact scenario? Art Coley. He was a broker, if you will, but he was in charge of franchise development, and he, is quoted as saying that the model was so positive or showed so much promise in his eyes that it's the only concept that he's purchased as well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and you're familiar with Art Coley. He just he's just recently has been last few years been involved with us and Blake Van Dusen's franchise. But I thought that was interesting too. Is that he sees a lot of brands and he sees a lot of opportunities and investments and businesses and franchise models, and decided that InXpress was something that he wanted to do, because you hear a lot of pitches, I'm sure, when you're in their position, right?
Sure.
And when it makes enough sense to invest your own cash, it's probably, from their standpoint and their knowledge, it's probably something that would be worth looking at.
Yeah, well, it certainly makes it more maybe legitimate to me when these people who are looking at it from a different perspective begin to say, you know what, this seems like it might be a damn good business, and you need that from time to time.
Yeah, and you and Brian Johnson were very successful.
Well, Brian was like super successful.
Yeah,
he was on another planet, but he was very helpful to me, and I was happy that he did so well. Because it made me feel like, okay, yeah, this can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So tell me about retirement, man. You've got it all wrapped up. How do you feel your days now?
Well, Blake, you would appreciate this. You can play golf every day if you want.
Oh man, don't tease me with that.
Instead of the 4 times a week that you do play.
Yeah. Oh, man.
No, it's funny. I was going to start kind of a writing project that has been on the back burner for a few years, and I was going to do that in like February or March, and my wife says, "You know what? Why don't you just do nothing for 6 months and just feel what it's like to not have that responsibility?" And so I've just sort of been sitting with it, and I do appreciate the kind of liberation of being in this position. I've like I say, I've worked for almost all my life, and not having to work is pretty cool. I think there will be moments in the future where I do want to do something. And I've got a couple of volunteer things that are cooking that will fill time. And then writing projects and things, but stuff that I haven't done at all in the past 10 years are now on the menu.
Yeah.
So I've done some traveling. I think COVID sort of put the brakes on that. But like playing golf, and I have a large collection of stained glass that has been just gathering dust, and now I'm starting to do stained glass projects, things that I just haven't been able to do. Bike riding and hiking and things. It's just been such a difference from what my work life was like, and I'm very appreciative of being in the position.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's only been, I want to say 8 or 10 months. Do you have any involvement with the franchise at all?
Operations wise, no. I worked probably the first 2 months full time just to ease the transition, and then sort of part time after that. Now I might get a phone call or an email from a previous customer once every 15 or 20 days.
Yeah.
But Nancy and Parker, they handle that, and so I'm largely an emeritus now.
Yeah. That's outstanding. Well, you finished on top. You made Top Gun for growth, I think, last year, right? Top 5 unit growing in the United States.
That's true.
Yeah.
I had a damn good year last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even with California, being hit with COVID, it feels like you're still doing well. I mean, numbers are going really well for that unit. Is it? Do you know if it's what the reason is?
I think because I was so amazing.
I teed you up for that. That's great. Yeah. You picked it. That was an underhand toss. Yeah.
I guess. I mean, it was a pretty stable group of customers. I was not like at the top of activations. That was never anything that I realized, but the folks who did come on board tended to stay on board, and I think it was a good customer mix. So there wasn't like an overexposure to e-commerce or overexposure to travel industry or restaurants or whatever was getting hammered. So I think that was just good fortune for me and for 149 as it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite books is Built to Sell by John Warrillow, and it just seriously, like, you're like a template for it. You've built something that operates, and you have the relationship with people where they know that your unit and Howard is the best option for international shipments and domestic freight. So props to you. It's impressive, and it was cool to watch from a distance.
Yeah, it was cool to watch up close too.
Fun to be involved with.
No, when I was talking about selling the franchise, I was saying, you know what? I gotta say, in all modesty, this is a damn good franchise because you've got some really big shippers and some really smaller consistent shippers, and most of the people feel very loyal, and in turn I think I feel loyal to them. So there is a certain connectedness that has taken place over the years that I felt very proud of and very confident that whoever ended up with 149 was going to have a pretty solid book of business, and I think that's been the case. Yeah.
Would you do it all again if you could?
Well, except for the first 3 years, yeah.
Nope, can't have the dessert without the entree, my friend.
No, it's the truth. It was really tough, but I so much enjoyed the experience of doing something on my own, and sort of completing the circle of what I mentioned earlier, proving that I wasn't a one-trick pony. That was pretty cool, to feel like God, we have all the tools that we need to do stuff, and most of the time, if we don't do it, it's only because we talked ourselves out of it, or something that we mistook for something else has occurred. But no, I was really fortunate. InXpress is populated with some really amazing people, and I feel like my experience with the whole thing was just fabulous. I would certainly do it again.
Yep. That's great to hear. It is funny, just how the quality of people that you mentioned. You go to convention and the people that have been there for a while, and even the brand new people, you can just tell that they're hard workers, they're dedicated, they're smart, they're creative, they know how to get it done, and that's what makes up the board or the FAC as it was back then, I think, when you served, and it creates so much quality, and it's just getting better as a network, as we grow and as we get people that have come through and graduated in your case, and just all the, I don't know, just all the quality that it's produced, and just like you mentioned proving that you could do it, even after all the money settles and after you've exited and said your goodbyes and congratulations and everything, it's proving, to your kids and to yourself that you're not a one-trick pony and that you could do something that's pretty special.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I've had amazing mentors, and to feel like InXpress grew just the same time I was growing is just a wonderful experience to have had.
Mm-hmm. Biggest regret and biggest success?
Biggest regret, I guess, was when I left Macy's. I was getting 5 weeks of vacation a year, and I think I counted up all the vacation time I had with InXpress, which is only my doing, but I think I came up with 8. I think I took a total of 8 weeks.
Oh my gosh, in 10 years.
In 10 years, yeah.
Well, that is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. Is only take 8 years of 8 weeks of vacation in 10 years.
Yeah,
incredible.
That was pretty ridiculous. Unfortunately, my wife is very supportive, or maybe she hates going on vacation with me. But no, that was a regret. I feel like I should have managed my business better. But it also felt like I've got to be here. I've got to be here. I've got to do this. And I guess there was value to it. It's not like, well, it all collapsed anyway.
Right.
It's more of like, yeah, it worked out. So, and the biggest success, I guess, was just being able to sell it. It's funny, when I went to training, I remember, I think it was Dustin was saying, well, somebody offered me, like $500,000 for my franchise. And I said, well, I'm not going to do it. And I thought, I don't need $500,000. God, if somebody offered me, 50, I'd be elated.
Yeah.
Cover my cost,
Yep.
And then, after 4 or 5 years, you start thinking, it's like, wow, somebody might want to buy this.
Yeah.
Well, I'll keep after it because, it's starting to look like could be some value here.
Yeah.
And being able to sort of convert that feeling of, oh, there might be value into, what do you know, there really was.
Right.
Was immensely gratifying. I mean, it's obviously funding retirement, but it's just that sense of, I did it.
Yep. And it's crazy how that gradually changes over time, like exactly what you said. When you first come in and when you're at that low and when you're following that franchisee graph, right, of dissatisfaction, and then all of a sudden success, and you get that ding, then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I like this, and this is why I chose this. And I remember the speeches at training about what I was looking for here. And it doesn't feel like it's an overnight, I mean, everybody says overnight success, but it's what you've done every day, just gradually, all the no's, and finding. It's really not finding even. It's just you're building it without feeling it, and then all of a sudden the value's there, and that's when I guess the fulfillment comes.
Yeah, I remember telling my brother that a little bit about InXpress, and I said, it's not get rich quick, it's get rich slow, but you still can get rich. And I'm not an ambitious kind of guy. I'm not materialistic, but I like the idea of having built something that compensates me for the time that I spent doing it, and the concern and the worry and the tears and the sense of I don't know what I'm doing. All that is part. That's what you're sort of being compensated for, and the other thing is, of course, just caring. Being able to care for your customers and have them sense that it's really immensely gratifying to be on the other side of it and say, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, we've only got a couple minutes here left. Let's see. We've covered a lot of this.
I told you it wouldn't take an hour.
There's so much, and I love this episode because you've got the whole chapter written. You've got the book closed with InXpress. Well, hopefully not the book closed. We'd love to have you still involved and come back to a convention or whatever the case is. But
where's the next one?
We're in Las Vegas this year. And then I think we're in San Diego next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might see me.
There you go. We're gonna have it. We're not gonna have any COVID problems by the time that convention rolls around in February.
Oh no, we'll be totally over that.
That's right. We'll have a vaccine. Everyone will be cured. The economy will be back to normal.
There'll be a vaccine, and InXpress will be the sole distributing agent for that.
Yep. That's exactly right. And it'll be franchise 149 that sends it all out.
Hey, I got to ask you, how'd you get into the San Diego thing?
Yeah, it was our coach, actually, mutual coach. So Kent Crawford was the owner, and he must have had a conversation with Dan Whitfield, who was both of our coaches.
Okay.
Dan is as you know, independent contractor now that
He was my coach.
Oh, he was? Okay,
Yeah.
right. You're right. So, right about the time that you exited, he left InXpress to do Coach Up at the on an individual level, build his own coaching business, and then work with other brands as well. So I think he has 3 franchises now, Michael, Kathy, and myself, that he still works with. And I've gotten a ton of value from him. He's incredible. And that was a question that I was going to ask you, was about the coaching experience with Dan. But yeah, he was. It happened to come up with him and Kent. And in my 10-year, my 5-year renewal was your 10-year renewal, and I had talked about just purchasing more units and expanding through acquisition, and he happened to hear that and just kind of told me about the opportunity. So it just kind of happened, through the grapevine, and then Kent and I obviously started talking, and it's been good. It's been good. I really enjoy working with Robin, who was a sales rep for Kent and 162, and the team there. Obviously Nancy is involved, Christine Melton, and Mary and Mitch. So there's a lot of support, a lot of people really getting to know them well, and it's a fun operation.
Have you been to San Diego, or do you visit your holdings?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Okay.
I went out there right before Thanksgiving, went there again in January, and then went there again in March, and it just happened to be right when COVID was spreading there. So that was right in March, and we were just starting to do the weird elbow thing that everybody's doing,
Yeah.
And then ever since, it's just not. It doesn't make sense to go there since. So I really need to get back out there and see people. That as you know from your time, the face to face is really important. Making the investment to go and see people and everything. So I'm anxious to get back out there as soon as they start opening businesses back up and don't work from home.
Okay. So you've been locked into Scottsdale for a while, I guess.
Yeah, we're still going into the office, contrary to CDC recommendations, but everybody wants to, There's 4 of us here, and we really like it, so we've been still going in and getting things done. So the sales was difficult at first because you were calling businesses and there would just be nobody answering, especially in California where they were hit harder. But it's really picking up now. The sales came back about May, June, and then the numbers are coming with current customer shipping volumes died like April, and then we saw those on invoices in May. But then things are coming back now slowly. So it'll still definitely hurt our year's numbers, just because of most of our customers being located in California.
Gotcha. So you own San Diego now? Did you own one before that?
Yeah, Martin Monig. Seth Kornfeld and I are partners on Martin Monig. Okay. Yep. So he was Indianapolis. We bought that in June of 2019. So they're affected a little bit less. They're out there and they're grease monkeys. They like to work and be out there, and they're still shipping. They do a lot of car parts because they're in Indianapolis.
Right.
So yeah, they're doing well. We're growing that unit as well because that area is doing well with motor industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, you're becoming a master franchisee.
No, I'm learning a lot. It's really cool, and the most recent has been the hiring and the reps and everything. So that part I really enjoy. It's really fun to be able to show people, how to grow it just like you did, and see, okay, here's the kind of conversations, and help them with the verbiage and how to approach it and when to follow up and all the sales kind of tactics. We've got a really good lead source from the Philippines that are doing the cold calls, as you know, with Booth and Partners. So we're working with them all the time. Did you ever use them at all?
No, I was a bad franchisee. I never used any of the services that
you're hard on yourself, man. You are absolutely not a bad franchisee. If you were, then I'd love to see what a great one would look like.
No, I was too cheap. It's like less responsibility, the better. So I didn't have to worry about anybody other than Howard Fischer, and that was fine with me.
Yeah. Well, that's the model. I mean, one of the questions that I like to ask people on here is, building a team versus running it lone wolf. Yeah. And the positives and negatives of that, and there's so many differences, and you can see franchises across the network that have done it differently and how they operated and what their headaches are completely different from the other version, right?
Oh God, yeah. I think one of the franchisees I talked to before I bought the franchise was Tom Morris, and so I talked to Tom for like 15 minutes, and Tom is like, talking to a tornado. It's just like, he's just all this energy, and he's just got, he's intense, and it's like, so I hung up the phone and I'm thinking, there's no way I could be that intense,
right.
And I think that's the kind of the magic of InXpress. You can be yourself. You don't have to be Tom Morris. You don't have to be Howard Fischer. You don't have to be Blake Waller even.
Right.
All you have to do is take this kind of formula and use it, the way you're comfortable doing it. And my method is light years away from yours, behind, but still different. So different, but it still works. And I think that's what's so encouraging, is that you don't have to have a franchise full or a network full of Toms or Blakes or Howards even. All you have to do is have committed people doing it, and you can see the success.
That's well said, man. Well, hey, I really enjoyed it. I want to open it up to you for anything else that you want to say to the network or anyone involved or anyone listening. It's been really cool to have you on the show, as the ownership chapter has been written. It's cool. You're the first guest that has sold the business and had 10 years with InXpress and so much experience. So I'll open it up, man. Anything else that you want to share or say to the listeners?
I don't have a speech prepared or anything like that, but I would just encourage anybody who's struggling to recommit to it. The business is there. There's no question that DHL is big and healthy, and the planes are flying and delivering the packages, and InXpress is going to continue doing what they're doing. So it really just comes down to the person, to the individual. And boy, if you can harvest the energy and summon the commitment to keep going, you can do well.
Cool. Thank you, Howard. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time, and we will talk to you very soon, my friend.
Thank you, Blake. You take care.
Hey guys, it's Blake. Just one more thing here. If you have any interest in InXpress or learning about what we do, head over to InXpress.com. There's a boatload of knowledge on shipping, B2B services, e-commerce growth, growing sales online. If you need a shipping quote or you want to be a sales rep and crush it with us, or the website just sounds cool, InXpress.com. That's InXpress.com. Take care.